evening, everyone. I know it's Wednesday again. Did you remember what day it was? It's Noir at the Bar night. Hello, I'm Vic Watson, if you didn't already know. I hope some of you know by now, but some of you maybe don't. This is Virtual Noir at the Bar. Tonight we have readings from Julia Crouch, Nicola Martin, E Lynes, Chouinard, Noelle Holten, Chris Ewan, Darren O'Sullivan, Amer Anwar, Louise Beach, Ragnar, Jonasson, and Nicola Martin. I really hope I haven't forgotten anyone. I'm so sorry if I have. I'm just doing it off the top of my head. Right. If you haven't joined us before, thank you very much for joining us. Noir at the Bar was started in Philadelphia in 2008 by Peter Rozovsky, and since then it's spread all over the world. And with the current pandemic, which we shall not speak of further than that this evening, a lot of them are now being beamed into your home. But there are still books to win. So I keep putting in the chat, if you would like to enter the prize draw to win books tonight, please just send an email to this address with the subject heading enter. You can tell us how amazing you think it is, or you can just send a blank email. It's entirely up to you. The running order is still pulled out of this all new and improved hat, seeing as the other one disintegrated the other week. The booze should be cheaper. If it's not, something's definitely amiss. If you'd like to talk about us on social media, please use that hashtag there. And if you are able and would like to donate to help us keep the lights on, i.e. pay for the webinar facility, please do so using that Ko-Fi account, but there is absolutely no obligation for you to do so. Thank you to everyone who's donated so far. We've had some very generous benefactors, but you're all very generous, and you're generous with your time, because tonight is a lovely evening. You could be out having a barbecue or a sit in the garden. I thought about skiving to go and do that, so why shouldn't you? Anyway, you might have noticed we've had a facelift. No, not me, the bar. I would like to thank Nicola Young for our lovely new graphics. She's been working on that this week, so thank you very much for that, Nicola. Usually we have audience participation. I ask you to give me a drum roll while I pull names out of the hat. I won't be able to hear it, but it would be really nice to know you were doing it anyway. If you hear something you're really impressed with, we have reinstated the woos. So if you are impressed, please do feel free to woo for impressive information. If you have any questions for our authors who are reading tonight, please do use the Q&A button, which is somewhere along the bottom of your screen. I will endeavour to ask the questions that you ask. I think that's it. Oh, behave yourselves in the chat room. We have Isaac Parker bouncing. He looks nice and friendly. Sometimes some people might think he was a bit BFG-ish, but if you don't play nice, you're out. He'll kick you out, okay? At the end of the evening, we do have a little surprise announcement for you. So if you can, please do stick with us until the end of the evening. But other than that, pour yourselves a drink and settle in for an evening of noir. So I'm diving straight in. 10 names in this hat. Oh, there's one just jumped out at me there. It's fate. It's Ragnar Jonasson. So if I can have a huge round of applause for Ragnar, please, that would be great. Thank you. I'll just find his bio. I had it all lined up. There it is. Ragnar is the award-winning author of the international best-selling Dark Iceland series and the Hulda trilogy. Ragnar has sold over 1 million books worldwide in 30 countries and 22 languages, with #1 bestsellers in the UK, France, Germany, Sweden, and Iceland. Woo! The Times selected The Darkness as one of the 100 best crime novels and thrillers since 1945, and Snowblind was selected as one of the top 100 crime fiction of all time by Blackwell's. Woo! I should be able to hear the impression this is making on you, because that's pretty impressive. The Mist is Ragnar's latest book, published in April, and the Times have called it a landmark in modern crime fiction. So we're very pleased to welcome Ragnar all the way from Iceland. So everyone, please, a huge round of applause for Ragnar Jonasson. There we go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Great to be with you for this this fantastic event. I joined in a few weeks ago and to watch the readings, and this was thoroughly enjoyable. So I'm very happy to be a part of it now. I'm speaking to you from Iceland. And what I want to do is read from this latest book called The Mist, which is just out. I'm going to read 1 or 2 chapters, I think. And in terms of context, the book is set in the eastern part of Iceland, just before Christmas. And we have this couple who live far away from everyone else. And the weather is pretty bad. It's snowing, and they're preparing to celebrate Christmas alone. And on the day before Christmas, or the eve, sort of before Christmas Eve, a stranger knocks on their door, and they have no idea where he came from, and they sort of have the feeling that he's not telling them the truth about his intentions. And so I'm going to read to you a little bit from that part of the story that's set in the Highlands. And so you have to imagine the snow and the darkness and a little bit of Christmas. Erla woke to find herself sitting in the driver's seat of the Jeep. She must have dozed off, but had no idea how long for. Given the risk of hypothermia, she was lucky to have woken at all. Had she heard a noise, or had that been a part of her dream? Stretching her cramped limbs, she peered out of the window to her left, only to come face to face with a pair of eyes staring in at her through a narrow gap that had been cleared in the ice. She flinched away, breathless with shock, then stiffened with terror. She couldn't see who it was standing out there looking in at her, but knew she couldn't escape. The Jeep wasn't locked, and she was as good as trapped in the driver's seat. In a panic, she dropped her gaze to the door handle, avoiding those horrible eyes, scrabbling frantically to lock the door from the inside. Of course, it would give her just a few seconds respite, as she could only reach the driver's door from where she sat. She couldn't get to the other lock without crawling across the wide seat to the passenger side. A tapping on the glass made her jump, and she realized that it must have been this noise that had woken her. Fighting back her dread, Erla raised her eyes to the window again, her heart pounding, determined this time to get a good look at whoever it was outside. It could only be one of 2 people: Einar, her husband, or the visitor. She couldn't let herself start believing in anything supernatural at this stage. Oh God, she hoped it was Einar. She strained to see his face through the narrow gap. It wasn't him. She sat paralyzed with fear. The man tapped on the window again. Erla, she heard him calling, his voice muffled by the glass. She rattled the door handle. Erla, can you open the door? I need to talk to you. She tried to answer, but her mouth was dry. Erla, please, will you come back to the house with me? This time she caught the note of fear in his voice. That in itself was odd, because if anyone ought to be scared to death, it was her, not him. Where's Einar, she thought. Why hadn't he come to look for her? She tried not to let her imagination run away with her. Of course he was all right. Of course, they must have split up and come to search for her separately. Perhaps he had gone to look for her in the barn. Goodness knows how long she had been gone. Letting herself fall asleep out here in the car had been a very bad idea indeed. It was still snowing, and the rusty old Jeep provided little shelter, with the cold air sneaking in through all the gaps in the bodywork. Erla, please get out of the car. I need to talk to you. The man tore at the handle again, and she feared for a moment that the whole door would come off. But however old and rusty it was, it seemed the Jeep wasn't about to fall apart. She looked helplessly around the gloomy interior, then plucked up the courage to meet Leo's eyes again. What do you want from me? She tried to convey the message wordlessly, didn't trust herself to speak. He seemed frightened. Yes, there was no doubt about it, yet at the same time terrified her. Both of them scared out of their wits. There was a recipe for disaster. He scraped the window clear so he could see her better, and now she took in the fact that he was wearing a coat. He must have charged Lizard without to pull on his outdoor clothes, and his hair and jumper were now plastered with white. He must be freezing too, yet a desperate energy seemed to be driving him on. Erla needed to know what lay behind this, but at the same time she dreaded the truth. Next minute she had let go of the handle and was wading as fast as she could around the car. She tried to reach across the lock on the passenger side, but was hampered by being so weak and stiff from the cold. He got there first and wrenched the door open. Never in her life had Erla been so petrified. She stared at the man, at the intruder who had spoiled their quiet Christmas, who had turned up armed with a knife, who had lied to them. No one should have been able to get here at this time of year. They should have been safe, cut off miles from the nearest settlement. There was a wild intensity in his eyes, yet for a moment neither he nor Erla moved. Having got the car door open, he didn't seem to know what to do next. Erla shifted almost imperceptibly away from him. He remained quite still, showing no sign of being about to lunge into the car. She began to inch her hand towards the lock on the driver's side, keeping her gaze riveted on Leo all the while. Then he spoke, his voice hoarse. "I need to talk to you, Erla. It's urgent." She didn't say a word, just stared back at him, and after a pause, she added something, his words barely audible over the fury of the storm. But she thought it was, "I am not going to hurt you, I promise." Erla's blood ran cold at the words. Reacting instinctively, she flung open the driver's door and clambered out of the Jeep. Without so much as a backward glance, she set off at a stumbling run, keeping her gaze trained on where the house ought to be. But again, she found herself moving with a dream-like slowness. The snow was even deeper than it had been earlier, and she was almost blinded by the flakes. At least intuitively, she knew where she was going, though, and headed up the familiar slope as she had countless times before, but never before in such desperate haste, her life depending on it. She was seized by a premonition that something terrible had happened and that she was in real danger, despite the man's assurances to the contrary. "I am not going to hurt you." She didn't dare look round, didn't want to know how close he was behind her, didn't dare slow her frantic pace. As she waded through the drifts, she shrieked into the void as loudly as she could, calling her husband's name, though she knew the sound waves would quickly dissipate among the wildly swirling snowflakes, and her despairing cry smothered up. No one there to hear that something had happened to Einar. She refused to believe it. It couldn't be true. Where the hell was he, though? Why was she alone, fleeing an intruder on Christmas Eve of all days? Einar, Erla would never have believed that she had it in her to screech like that. Terror was clearly a great source of strength. She was dangerously cold in her thin indoor clothes, but that didn't matter now. The only thing that mattered was to get into the house before Leo and lock the door behind her. She had to lock him out and make sure all the windows were secured as well. Then she could behave as if nothing had happened, as if it was just a normal day. A blackness developed at the edges of her vision and began to close in like a tunnel, but she fought against it. She wasn't going to faint. She was so nearly there. She was going to make it, and no one was going to stop her. She was terrified that any minute now Leo would catch up with her and she would feel his hand grabbing her shoulders, shoving her down in the snow, and then what? However difficult it was to fight a path back through the drifts to the house, he must surely be able to run faster than her, so why hadn't he caught up already? She longed to look round and see how much of a head start she had on him, but she couldn't bring herself to turn. She just kept going. A dark shape loomed through the whiteness, the house. She was nearly there, so very nearly there. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ragnar. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next reader. Oh, yeah, they're just flying out of here tonight. Right, so yes, lots of thank yous for Ragnar saying how much they enjoyed your reading. Thank you very much. Our next reader is Julia Crouch. Julia Crouch is the author of Cuckoo, Every Vow You Break, Tarnished, The Long Fall, and Her Husband's Lover, which is currently in development in Ireland as a feature film. Woo! She has contributed to several short story collections, as well as having fiction and features published in most major magazines and newspapers. Before all that, Julia was a theatre director and playwright / screenwriter. She is a visiting fellow on the crime fiction MA at I can never say this, University of East Anglia, and Royal Literary Fund Fellow at the University of Brighton. With William Shaw, Julia co-hosts the Brighton Crime Wave, a bi-monthly author event at Brighton's Waterstones, and she is a member of Killer Women. We had a few Killer Women on here last week. Julia is currently working on her 6th novel and adapting Cuckoo for TV. With 3 grown-up children, she now spends her days writing in the garden in Brighton. So everybody, please welcome Julia Crouch.
Thank you. Just unmuting myself there. Hello, everybody. What a beautiful evening, and thank you for staying in. Probably all in your gardens, actually, aren't you? So I'm going to read from my current work in progress. So you have to bear with me because I'm very nervous about sharing work before it's kind of quite finished. Although this is now, I think the title of the file is draft 6, so it has been knocking around for a while, going through various iterations. In fact, I've just printed it all out, and I'm just going to read it through and hopefully send it off to my agent. So it's called The Childminder, and it's a sort of Grand Designs Abroad meets a very dark Yoga with Adrian by way of the secret history. It's all set largely in Puglia, which is the heel bit of southern Italy, where a group of friends with a terrible secret are restoring a Trullo complex. And I've done this little one I prepared earlier. That's a Trullo. And they're all over Puglia. I had to go on some arduous research trips to find out more about them. Actually, it's really nice. And I chose this partly because none of us will be, unless we're in Italy now, none of us will be going to Italy probably this summer. So this is set in Italy, so you'll get a little flavour. There may or may not be witches involved, but there is very definitely an unhinged childminder on the premises. So this is the opening section. Chapter 1, House. The Trullo della Luna squats deep in a grid of flat tracks that slice the olive groves into peasants' parcels. A scattering of outbuildings stands guard around it, echoing its shapes. There's not a crumb of mortar here. The dry stone walls and conical roofs are held together by physics and by prayer. 18 years ago, in an English garden some 1,463 miles away from here, a daughter of this house struggles for her life. All around her, falling through her fingers, is it glass or ice or precious, precious diamonds? In fact, it's just English swimming pool water. Her neck bears the mark of large hands, and her mind is expanding, blasting apart, atomizing. Her own smaller hands reach for the surface, but they go through it. She has nothing to hold on to. A figure blurs the edges of her liquid vision. Hope? Help me. It comes out more as a gurgle, a string of bubbles from lungs rapidly becoming more water than air. Help! She thrusts out her hand, but the figure stays still, just out of reach. She gasps and flails. The figure does nothing. The sedge has withered from the lake, and no birds sing. She looks away and up, and through the watery film above her, her pupils fix and dilate on a shimmering hand, recalling that famous ceiling she has been studying for her art history, A-level. Except it's not the pointing finger of God. It might not even be there at all, but if it is the hand of an old, old woman who, back here in the Trullo della Luna, is leaving the world at exactly this same moment. And instead of pointing, she is holding her hand out like a mother reaching for a small child. We will not let them get away with this, she may be saying. We'll never know for sure, because if she is speaking, it's for the dying girl's ears only. Not a single one of them. They will pay. And meanwhile, the all too real figure in front of the dying girl does nothing. These days, from time to time, the buildings that make up the Trullo della Luna surrender to the earth. Some do it slab by slab, others all at once with an earthquaking crash, which, were there any witnesses, would be spectacular. From a fig bowed with weeping fruit, a lone cricket chirps. A gecko basks on a bleached stone wall, its suckered feet holding it in place as it soaks up the midday sun. The door to the main house hangs open, but no one goes in. Not into this house. Its proper name is Trullo della Luna, but they call it Casa della Strega round here. That's Witch House. Youths from the nearby town zip past on their scooters on their way to the place where they like to smoke spinelli and fumble below waistbands. Girls hang on behind their boys. Old ways die hard here. Not a helmet between them. As they pass these ruins, they may be too cool to cross their chest with their fingers, but the reflex is there, embedded by generations of practice. Inside, therefore, the few belongings of Rosaria, the old woman who might or might not in her dying moments have reached across a continent for that drowning girl, remain untouched, left for the creatures. A spider crawls across a disintegrating lace bedspread, which, many weeks after she died, was peeled away from Rosaria's body by the town doctor. Being a man of science, he was the only one who dared enter to remove what hadn't leached into this mattress. All that's left now is stained ticking, a wardrobe of her black clothes, a scant collection of cooking utensils and pots and pans, including, as the doctor recalls in the town square bar after he has handed Rosaria's remains to the undertaker, a cauldron hanging over the fire. There is little else in here, or any of the outbuildings, that could give the casual observer a clue to the kind of life she led. Not the outbuildings the doctor could get inside, anyway. Some of the doors just won't move when he tries them. Some of the buildings he doesn't even find. To this day, the house holds its hurts and secrets close. And if it has any agency, it now has a new outrage to avenge, to add to that of that girl in the English pool 18 years ago. Again, far away, another child of the witch house has been taken brutally and badly before his time. Everything is connected. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Julia. So, Julia, can I just check, when is that due out?
It's actually, I don't know, is the answer. We'll have to wait and see, but you can check out on my Twitter. Be sure when I get a date, you will know.
Good to know. I was just going to say, so when it does come out, you can all say you heard it here first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Okay, so our third and final reader for this part of the evening is Louise Beech. Louise Beech once bet her mum £10 that she'd be published by the age of 30. Her first newspaper piece was published at 31, but it took many years and many rejections and 4 novels for Louise to finally get a book deal in 2015. Her debut, How to Be Brave, got to number 4 on Amazon and was a Guardian reader's pick. Maria and the Moon was described as quirky, darkly comic and heartfelt by the Sunday Mirror. Ooh, sorry, I forgot my woos, Louise. That was very rude. The Lion Tamer Who Lost was shortlisted for the Popular Romantic Novel of 2019 at the RNA Awards. Woo! And longlisted for the Polari Prize in 2019 as well. Also, woo! Call Me Stargirl was longlisted for the Guardian's Not the Booker Prize and was Best Magazine's Best Book of the Year 2019. Double woo. I Am Dust was released in April 2020. Louise still hasn't given her mum that tenner. So everybody, please, big round of applause for Louise Beech.
I'm just unmuting myself. There, can everyone hear me? Hello, everyone. First of all, I'm going to hold the book up. It's the first thing that my publisher taught me to do when you're talking about your book, is hold it up so everybody can see it. Also, I'm going to just mention that it's 99p at the minute on Amazon. I don't know how long that's for, so if you want to grab it while it's hot, so to speak. So yes, I Am Dust here as well on the bookshelf. I'm an old pro. Not just with the books, no, kidding. So I Am Dust is book number 6. Can't quite believe it's book number 6. And it's set in haunted theatre. That's because I work as a usher in a theatre. Not at the minute, sadly. I miss it very much. Obviously, during lockdown, theatres, pubs and restaurants are shut. So actually, if you want to go to the theatre, guys, this is the way to go to the theatre, albeit haunted. Yeah, so as an usher, I work in the shadows, so to speak, so I get to see all the action backstage and kind of no one notices me. So that means that you're a little bit invisible, and people will often speak and behave as if you're not there because you are, you know, just nondescript nobody. And so I thought I wanted to write a book from the viewpoint of an usher rather than from the viewpoint of an actor, which is what most people do when it's a theatre story. So basically, I Am Dust is the first line from a song. The musical is Dust. Dust is the biggest musical of all time, shall we say, at this particular theatre, the Dean Wilson Theatre. But 20 years ago, the actress who plays the main character was murdered on the 4th night in her dressing room. Her murderer has not been caught. 20 years on, they are daring to resurrect it, to try and sort of bring sales in for the theatre. A lot of people think it's a bad idea. Who's going to play the role where the actress was murdered? Chloe D is the usher, watching all of this unfold. And when she finds out that the show's coming back, there are faces from the past that are involved in that. So that's all I'll say. So I'm going to do 2 very brief readings because I think sometimes it just mixes it up a little bit. So I'm going to do a reading which is Chloe in one of the haunted dressing rooms, looking at the original I Am Dust poster and kind of just thinking about her life because she's an usher. She wants to be an actress, but she's never quite made it. So this is that scene. The original poster for Dust hangs on the wall. It's yellowed at the edges and torn where its weight has pulled it free from drawing pins. It's forbidden for anyone to take it down. Chloe moves closer to it. A coating of dust on the surface traps the light, so it looks like it's sprinkled with glitter. I am dust, she whispers. Surely it isn't really coming back. Chester must have got things wrong. He has before, like the time he told them that Tom Hardy was going to be at his show, and it turned out it was local actor Tom Hardlin. Dean Wilson wrote the show to open the brand new theatre 20 years ago. It sold out in minutes. The lavish musical set in Victorian England told the story of Esme Black, a housemaid who fell for her employer, wealthy doctor Gerard Chevalier. But he loved Lady Louisa Pierce, a vivacious creature. While Chevalier and Louisa were kissing at a garden party at his house, Esme hurled herself from the balcony and died at his feet. After that, she haunted Chevalier day and night until he succumbed and fell in love with her ghost and committed suicide to be with her. There was a huge battle for the role of Esme. Actresses slept with producers, agents paid money to those who might sway the decision, actresses made recordings of themselves crooning the melancholic songs and sent them to anyone who mattered. But after a 2-minute, breathtaking audition that silenced the whole room, Morgan Miller won the role. Chloe saw it the night it opened. During the interval, on the 4th run, Morgan Miller was found dead in a dressing room, hit over the head repeatedly with one of her own awards. The show shut down. The killer was never caught. The theatre stayed open and became a place of macabre interest. Ticket sales flourished and stayed high for a long time, even if the quality of the productions declined. Now, nothing seems to bring the audiences in, not even exaggerated tales of how Morgan Miller haunts the shadowy passages backstage. But Chester thinks it's coming back. Dust. Thank you very much. So another little reading for you, just a brief one. Thank you. Okay, this is a ghostly moment when Chloe is on her own in the theatre and thinks she may have seen something. Chloe walks to centre stage and faces the rows of empty seats, gentle rays from the night lamp, which is always on, flickering over them. She looks behind her at the swirls of black curtain shrouding the brick wall, rows of tall, still witches waiting to cast a spell. There is nothing like it being on stage. That gut-churning fear before going on, the buzz from an appreciative audience, the feeling of being bigger and brighter than any star in the galaxy, the relief afterwards. Chloe has only experienced it on an amateur set, only stood here and imagined it in a theatre like this one. How must Morgan Miller have felt? The weight of that expectation on opening night, the thrill of being the chosen one, the fear of forgetting those infamous lines, the relief at those early rave reviews, the glory of success. And then it was over. Then she died. Chloe should go. She turns, but something stops her. Something drags her gaze upwards to the back of the auditorium. There's someone there. Someone as real as Chloe, yet as ethereal as a ghost. A woman, milky dress fluid, golden hair cascading, face obscured by a netted veil. I'm still here. Chloe imagines that the eyes beneath are grey, but colour as she speaks. Imagines that the mouth beneath opens and familiar words pour out. I am dust. It's Morgan Miller. Chloe realises her trousers are damp and touches her thigh with disgust. Has she urinated in fear? No, she can smell it. It's blood. Blood? Her scars are bleeding, her wounds are open. Then the night lamp goes out. Blackness. Chloe runs towards the light in the corridor. She looks back just once and is sure for a moment that the lamp flickers back on and that a large black bird is standing on the ledge above, feathers as sleek as oily water. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Louise. And we're going to stay with you for a second because we've had a question for all of our writers who are with us tonight. Claire Shaw would like to know, how did you decide what section you would like to read?
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, it's always difficult when you write crime novels to decide what you're going to read, because it's that you don't want to give any spoilers at all. So for me, I tend to always choose the opening chapter or the prologue or something, because also they're kind of like the most impactful, and they're kind of the most, obviously you've got to write them to grab the person. I don't know, Louise was reading from different parts of her novel. I'd like to hear that.
Go on then. What made you choose those?
Am I on mute? Sorry. Yeah, I was told that listeners, no matter how good the reading is, apparently after about 2 or 3 minutes, even if it's the best reading in the world, they start to drift a bit. So I always think, introduce it, do a short reading, and then do another reading, and it just feel like that works.
Great, thank you. Chouinard, we're going to come to you now. How do you decide what you want to read?
So this is actually my first time reading. So I went with the obvious and just figured I would go with the introductory scene. But I decided, because I just had an announcement today from my publisher that there's going to be the 4th book in my series. Yay. So I decided to go ahead. I'm going to do a short reading that's the beginning of my book that's currently out, and the first scene of my work in progress.
Oh, very exciting. Thank you. I look forward to that. Amer, how about you?
Well, I had a bit of difficulty because, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, that's grand, thank you.
So if I looked at, there were some great scenes, what I thought, later on in the book, but they would be giving stuff away. So I thought the best thing to do was pick something from the beginning that just kind of introduces the story, sort of like the first inciting incident, and then let it go from there.
Great, thank you. We have E Lynes, and I'm going to put the question to you, Susie.
Hi, yeah, similar to the others, I wanted to choose something that's full of suspense and without giving the plot away, and I've chosen a very short excerpt from right at the start, which kind of gives you the setup, I guess. And, you know, just hoping not to bore everybody to tears, really.
I'm sure you won't, thank you. Darren O'Sullivan, put your teeth in, Vic. How about you?
Hi everyone. Yeah, I have to start at the beginning because I'm terrible for giving away plot. So I figure if I read the opening of a book, I can't give too much away, because I'm one of those who, I've seen a film and I know what happens, I kind of spoil it. I try not to, but I do it all the time. My very first radio interview I ever did for my debut, I literally, they asked me about the book and I told them the whole story, twist included. So no one bought it. So now I read a tiny bit from the beginning and I keep quiet as quick as I can.
Excellent. Darren, I'm with you because my husband has never forgiven me for spoiling Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy when I went to see it at the cinema. So, Noelle.
Yes.
Hi, how do you choose? Are you going to say the same as everyone else?
Yeah, pretty much the same as everyone else. I'm like Darren, I'm pretty bad at condensing or kind of talking about my books without giving away a spoiler. So I figure if I stick to, you know, either the first or second chapter, at least the context of the story will be there, and I'm not going to spoil it for anyone. So
Excellent.
I have no choice.
Thank you. Chris Ewan, welcome to Virtual Noir at the Bar. How do you choose your readings?
Hi everyone. Well, like everyone else, I think until tonight, I've always read from the very opening of the book, but tonight I am reading from chapter 12 randomly. It's the hinge point of the whole novel. So something new. Maybe this will be a mistake. Maybe I'll learn from this mistake. But yeah, I think as writers, we often spend the longest time kind of honing that opening of the book. You know, that's the bit that when I'm writing a book, I'm endlessly looping on the beginning before I go on and write more each day. And so probably there's a bit of safety blanket in that as well. But who knows, something different tonight.
Thank you. And finally, Nicola Martin, welcome.
Hello. I wanted to shock everyone and say I'll be reading the final scene of my novel, but I'm not. I'm just reading the opening scene. But what might be interesting is that I'm not actually reading it as it's published.
Ooh.
So as you can see, I've sort of highlighted it. I've done an edit of my opening scene to make it a bit snappier.
Excellent, thank you. Claire, I hope that answers your question. For the rest of you, and also Claire, if you have any other questions, please do feel free to pop them in the Q&A box and we will endeavour to answer them if we can. Thank you for the Love of My Mouse Rat t-shirt, by the way, and also Amer and Chris's bookshelves are getting a lot of love. Also, Darren and Louise, the savviest of marketing people, with Noelle in there as well, I see. Lovely organisation there, well done folks. So we're going to have about a 5-minute break now. I have also been informed reliably that I Am Dust by Louise Beach is on 99p offer only for a couple more days, so get in there quick while you can. We shall see you in 5 minutes. Thank you very much everyone.